Oh, hello, hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? So, I am extraordinarily late to getting a start. It happens. Um, Today has just been all kinds of weird and special. Not least of which includes this completely maddening USPS delivery. So, just to I know nobody cares about this, but I have a review unit coming, and USPS came by to deliver it today. The delivery person apparently, I wasn't there to see this myself, but someone else was. Apparently, the delivery person took an extraordinarily long amount of time to just hop out of the vehicle. Apparently, they didn't make much of an effort to deliver, but they were here, so whatever. And they left a delivery slip. I have been trying to reschedule the delivery so I don't have to actually go there personally and pick it up, and which, very notably, their office is only open for about 1 hour after the package gets back to it. So, picking up in person is sort of an awful experience anyway. Anyway, I'm trying to reschedule a delivery, and the system keeps complaining that the tracking number I'm using doesn't even exist. I've double checked it multiple times. I definitely typed it incorrectly. Oh boy. I don't know who to blame for this, but it's going to be DeJoy. Anyway, moving on to slightly more fun things. Well, slightly more fun things would be how I describe the current battles in dealing with review units. Multiple companies have all decided that their announcements should be coming in the next few weeks. And I have products from many of them. So, shoot the messenger next time. You know what? Seeing as the messenger in this instance would be a postal worker, that is a step I think would be considered deeply politically inappropriate. Politically incorrect to say. So, I will not. I won't go that route. Though I'm sure plenty of people have wanted to. But yeah, review units. A lot of stuff coming next month. Kind of almost feels like a Techtober sort of thing. But hey, it is what it is. The really annoying complication is it also means I'm literally actually having problems finding places to just even put things. No exaggeration, I literally have half of my bed right now dedicated to boxes and various other things because I don't have space to set them anywhere else. Oh, joy. Though, admittedly, this is partially a problem of my own making because I also don't throw enough stuff away. It is what it is. So, let's talk about this wild week we're having. I could obviously go directly into talking about Apple and the DOJ's lawsuit, but how many people here, honestly, have just already gotten sick of this story? I have a feeling more than one of you. I have a feeling at least two of you. And as the current viewer count would suggest, that's probably a lot. But hey, I think that has been talked to death. So I'm just going to give the general overview, which is I think Apple's probably going to have some real troubles as a result of this, but I don't think it's going to be I don't think it's going to end up being that significant of a result in the end. As others have said, I believe Austin was one of them. Look, this is going to take years to sort out in court. And by the time it does, Apple will have almost certainly pushed multiple initiatives that effectively countermand the things that they're accused of. I'm not saying that they're going to make it right. I'm just saying that the things that they're accused of, they're probably going to do things like, oh, you guys aren't happy with iMessage being an iPhone exclusive? Okay, well, we're supporting RCS, so you don't really have a place to complain here. And, oh, you're not happy about how developers are being charged for, or how we're skimming so much off the top from developers? Okay, well, we're gonna launch a new initiative that does this, and it'll be in place in 2027. Maybe a little sooner, but whatever. And the list goes on. Like, I expect they're probably going to have multiple things that happen that will just barely make it okay. And by the time that by the time these types of antitrust cases get through the courts and through multiple stages of appeals, the punishments usually don't really matter that much anymore. So, yeah, I don't think this is a nothing burger. I think this actually will have a lot of really positive effects in the long run. But it's going to be a while. And when it finally does happen, it's, we're not going to see the big victory that I think some of us would like to see. And more importantly, and this I think is actually the really critical detail, I don't think the lawsuit itself is really going to have much of a corrective effect on the damage that was already done. And that is the big issue. The damage that was already done by having years and years of the iMessage exclusivity and intentionally degrading the quality of SMS or communications with any non-iPhone, rather. Look, that was a lot of damage. Apple successfully leveraged this exclusivity into making the iPhone more popular among large groups in the US. Fortunately, they weren't very successful worldwide in this same strategy, but they definitely did it in the US. We can also point to, obviously, some of the ill effects of the App Store. We can point to some of the problematic effects from how they've affected the web, because by any objective measure, Apple's also been a pretty big deterrent in properly rolling out web technologies. As a result, I think we are behind. I think as a society, we've been affected negatively. And I don't think Apple's going to ever really see punishment for those types of effects. But you never know. I guess we'll see. We could possibly get more of a result from those in the future. Austin saying, I'm still wildly entertained by the movement of the Apple cult to the far right because of this. Yeah. The Apple cult response in general, like, I'm picking apart your statement in multiple pieces because it needs to be. The Apple cult in general has been holy crap levels of wacko over this. And yeah, I wanted to do readings, but Corbin bailing out. I don't think an SNL style reading of Apple comments would really play with just one person. Though I don't deny I'm still tempted to go go dig in and find various things to just do dramatic readings. But maybe that'll be next week. Anyway, the fandom that exists for Apple is, I wouldn't say it reached a fever pitch, but it's definitely wild. We're watching as people who, I'm not going to say they ever really didn't come across as a little bit special. If anyone doesn't know that reference, by the way, I believe it was his name David Lynch? He was a comedy musician years ago. No, that's not it. I'm not gonna remember the guy's name. Anyway, he had a song called "Little Bit Special" that just kind of fits in this moment. But yes, their fandom has been wild. It's been intense. But Austin, what you said, it really pins us down. Like, the Apple cult has suddenly turned extremely anti-government. Obviously not all of them, but a lot of them. And they're deciding to turn this into like weirdly political rhetoric. There's definitely been some blaming Biden. This is feeling kind of like one of those like, what was the expression? It's turning into one of those thanks Obama moments. Like, we're watching as people are blaming the current administration, blaming Biden as if somehow this was Biden's doing. Like, oh my God, Biden hates the Apple people, so he's gonna dismantle the company we love. No, they just want the company you love to play by the same rules. But hey, yeah, it is what it is. The sanity and rationale have gone out, and tribalism has become the new normal. But hey, that said, Apple and Tesla people are back in the same camp again. Who knew it would just come as a side effect of going to the far right? Anyway, so David said, still excited Apple's needed a shake up for some time. Yeah, and what's kind of interesting to me about this is coming just as a lot of people were sort of predicting Apple is maybe about to hit some weaker years. Apple really has gone, like, legally speaking, they've gone unchecked for basically 15 years. Think back to when Apple was a patent troll. By the way, you know what? I'm still mad. That is not, as far as I'm aware, that's not listed anywhere in the DOJ complaint. No one is talking. As far as I'm aware, they do not have any issues with the fact that Apple was a blatant patent troll for years. Remember them suing Samsung because Samsung made a phone that they thought was too similar to an iPhone because it had a button on the front of it, and otherwise it was just basically a glass sandwich? Like, really? Was it that similar? Look, there were phones you could point to and complain that they were too similar to iPhones. I'm not going to dispute that. There really were some. But Samsung's phones, I mean, really? Okay, Apple. Yeah, okay. Insert J-Law meme right there. Anyway, so Apple also notoriously was a patent troll over things like, they actually hassled a few companies over touchscreen technology. They sued Amazon over having an app store. Yes, technically they sued over the name App Store, but they also sued Amazon for literally just having an app store. That actually happened. They tried to fight Google over the Play Store briefly, but ended up dropping that one, as I recall. They, oh, what else did they do? There was a lawsuit related to location services once. I think it was location. I might have that one wrong, but they did try suing Google over something. Um, they've sued so many companies over so many things. Um, I mean, it's just wild. So look, Apple has been the bad guy many, many times, and they have bullied companies so much using tactics that are, by any reasonable measure, extraordinarily anti-competitive. How about that be part of a lawsuit? You know, I have a complicated opinion about the patent system. I do think that we need to have it. I don't think it is inherently a bad thing. I just think that the rules surrounding how we handle patents are completely wrong. But we do need to have it. The problem is, we've basically created it so about, I don't know, I'm going to say about 200 companies basically get to rule the world because they own patents on stuff that largely they should not have patents for. Oh yeah, the Palm iTunes blocking. Wow, I forgot about that one. That one was something special. For those that don't remember, Palm used to have, or Palm had managed to get access to iTunes so that you could actually sync your music to Palm devices, and Apple bullied the hell out of them to prevent that. I thought there was a lawsuit, but I guess maybe not. Maybe it was just an internal thing. But let's not forget, Apple has also used lawsuits to tackle anyone who found various ways to like hack certain functionality. Oh yeah, they threatened to sue Palm when they took some Apple employees to make WebOS. Well, strictly speaking, Apple has threatened to and or sued lots of companies just for hiring former Apple employees. That has been a common thing. Though to be fair, Apple's not the only one. That was actually a thing a lot of companies have done. Let's see. Yeah, anyway, so I'd love to see so many more things dealt with. I don't think we're going to see it, but the fundamental point is Apple really did basically go unchecked for years and years, and really they did so much damage to the industry, or at least took so much advantage of the industry, that it definitely hurt competitors in inappropriate ways. That said, I don't think Apple's going anywhere. If they get punished, it's not going to be a punishment that takes down Apple. However, and I started saying this earlier, all the predictions were that Apple's about to see a decline. Regardless of the DOJ lawsuit. Like, these predictions came well before the DOJ lawsuit was material. The theory has been that Apple has not really had a next big thing since really the iPad. Like, Apple TV happened and it didn't really happen. They tried to make various Apple services happen. Didn't really happen. They did have the Apple Watch, and I would argue that actually was fairly big, but it's still, by Apple's standards, it is still a niche product. Or, well, it's in kind of that border between niche and not niche, but it's not it's not the kind of thing that you run your company on. It doesn't have the same sort of impact or effect as the iPhone itself. So people, and of course there's no way not to point out, and just because it's kind of funny, I will start this as actually the first background slide. For those that don't know, the Vision Pro can be had from Woot right now for a whopping $200 off. Not even 1%. Or sorry, not even 10%. What am I saying? Yeah, it's not even 10% off. That's what, like 7% off? So yeah, this is no one should do this. But yeah, this is a product that, you know, it has sold. People are buying Vision Pros, but a lot of people are returning them. A lot of people are trying them out and throwing them back over the wall. And even among the people who are keeping them, let's be honest, the general consensus is they're cool, but not cool enough for $3,000. So, you know, even the people that bought them, it's people, or the people who are keeping them, it's mostly people who look at that and say, yeah, 3,000, drop in the bucket, no big. I spend that on lunch. So yeah, it's not exactly a huge success, not yet. That said, Apple doesn't really have that next big product. Oh, plus they canceled the Apple Car. If that was ever actually going to be a thing, it seems that project is now truly dead. So, seeing as Apple doesn't really have its next big thing, plus, as many people have definitely noted, Apple is at least a year behind on AI. I would argue that is not the big hit that I think everyone was predicting. In fact, I'm going to quickly find another spot in Verge's coverage that sort of, I think, sets this point really well. Yeah, here we go. But Apple, yes, Apple's behind on AI, and they are going to partner with Google to provide some degree of AI features. It's still a bit unclear what exactly is going to be covered in that deal, but nevertheless, the big thing right now is AI. Apple isn't there. And, you know, that's fine. I think the AI hype is still more hype than it is material, but we'll see. And also, for what it's worth, I think getting too caught up in the current state of AI leaves you sort of in this spot where it looks more serious than it is. And just to demonstrate this, here are a couple of articles that just happen to hit back to back. Databricks says its new AI model performs better than Llama 2, Grok, and Mixtral. Which, by the way, if that sentence sounds like a jumble of various words that aren't really words sometimes, and some of them just sound like odd sounds, yeah, you're right. And at this stage, words don't really mean anything in technology anymore. But so here's a company basically saying, yeah, we're the new hot thing. And whether or not that's true, go ahead and debate that all you like. But just before that, Amazon has poured $2.75 billion more into AI startup Anthropic. And if you don't know about this Anthropic was already getting a deal from Amazon or investment from Amazon. This isn't exactly new news. It's just somebody cut a check today for more of the money that they committed. But Anthropic, for those that don't know, claims that it's going to outperform ChatGPT and Google Gemini. Literally every company coming along right now is leapfrogging the previous thing and saying, oh, we're beating them now. And it's only going to be a few weeks or a month, and then some other company will come along and say, oh, but we're beating that now. It's going to just keep playing this way. Like, we're in that stage of AI where every week someone is going to outperform or outmaneuver someone else's AI. It just is. That's just where it's at. This is normal. If Apple invests a ton of money in AI, which I'm sure at this stage, in order to keep investors happy, they're absolutely going to do, Apple can drop, I don't know, let's just throw 500 million as a number. Actually, no, that almost sounds too low. It's weird to say 500 million. Nah, that's not enough. Apple could throw a couple billion at this. Not even shaking the tree for cash. Like, this is barely checking the couch cushions for them. They could throw a few billion at this, and within a year, probably less, they could be in the same position as any of these other companies. They'll leapfrog somebody else. That's just the sort of position AI is in. I'm not even sure it would take a year. Honestly, at this stage, it really feels like this could be something that, if you just hire a few people and kind of know what they're doing, this feels like it could be something that you're rolling out in 6 months. But whatever. Anyway, getting back to that central premise, it's expected that Apple's going to take some losses over the next few years. Now, will that affect stock price? I doubt it. But Apple just doesn't have that next big thing. And as a result, they're probably going to start taking a little bit of a belt tightening, which is funny for the richest company out there. It's funny for a company that is basically printing money with iPhones. The thing is, people are going to look at this DOJ lawsuit and blame that. People aren't going to blame the fact that Apple doesn't have something new. They're not going to blame the fact that Apple is kind of not seen where things are going. They're absolutely going to blame the fact that the DOJ is suing them. Let's see. Austin, it would probably take a while because they basically would need to build an AI-focused server farm. So here's the thing. Apple has plenty of server farms. They've got tons of them all over the US, all over the world. Would they have to? So yes, they have to build an AI-focused server farm for the purpose of being more efficient. But, strong but energy here. I don't think that they have to necessarily, they don't need to build a new facility. They just need to repurpose and part of existing facilities. Because let's be honest, a lot of their server energy right now is already going towards things like Siri. And most of their server farms still have plenty of capacity. So really, they just need to roll out more AI targeted hardware and repurpose some of the existing hardware that would actually be replacing some of the software and services that they already are. AI will be replacing certain software and services. So in the course of that, they just need to replace the hardware that was already supporting those software and services. Will it require more hardware? More server infrastructure? I'm sure it will. But is it necessarily going to become like an overwhelming new project? I don't think it has to. But I guess we'll see. It is safe enough to say that Apple is obviously going to be investing plenty in AI anyway. But, yeah. So, I think that was... I wasn't even going to talk about this for more than a couple minutes, and here it is like a half hour later. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that with the DOJ stuff. And maybe we'll make fun of Apple cultists next time. Okay, so switching, actually, you know what? Let's keep this on Apple. Let's keep this on Apple. So Oregon did something cool, and this is one of those great things where every once in a while, and I've criticized states for doing this, but I also commend them when it's done well. Every once in a while, a state comes along and it passes a law that is actually going to do some good for the whole rest of the country. Oregon has passed a law that is part of the right to repair movement that basically dictates a lot of the same things that right to repair laws already have, which is basically that you can't prevent consumers from replacing parts, that you can't prevent consumers from, or you can't necessarily nullify a warranty just because somebody did have to replace a part, especially if they did it through a reputable service center. They're also mandating things like there have to be replacement components available from the company that manufactured this, etc., etc., etc. Like, a lot of these right to repair bills kind of hit similar notes. Oregon's did something new and different, and it is something people have been calling for years. They have banned the practice of component pairing or parts pairing. Let's see. On the previous topic, Austin saying it would probably take a while because they basically would need... Oh, sorry. I did already read that. Weird. For some reason, that looked like a new comment. Okay, anyway, sorry. Never mind. Forget I started going off in that direction. So, Oregon's right to repair bill is going to ban parts pairing. Parts pairing is a process where you might have, let's say, an iPhone where it says the only device or the only component you're allowed to install to replace our display is an Apple made display, and you have to go through a special process in order to authorize this specific iPhone to use this specific display. Now this has multiple impacts because prior to this law, what you would even have is like you could have two iPhones, one of them broken for one reason and one broken for a completely different reason, and if you were to dismantle and piece them together, you could have one fully good iPhone. However, due to parts pairing, you literally cannot do that. That is actually not possible on current iPhones because you would have to get Apple servers to certify and basically send an authorization token to the iPhone saying, "Oh, this motherboard, this main board is not matched to this display." They could be from the exact same model, but they're not matched. Therefore, they can't work together. That is actually a thing that happens with current iPhones. If once this law is in place, and it won't affect existing devices, which kind of sucks, but all future devices, this is basically going to mandate that, yeah, you can't do that anymore. If you take a brand new piece off of one thing and good working parts off of another, they should be put together and work together. Strictly speaking, that doesn't prohibit other types of restrictions from possibly working or being security hurdles, but it has to be possible still to get to that point. So, we'll see. David, Oregon doing something? Hey, Oregon Oregon is, look, we're a small but scrappy state. We don't have a lot going on. We're kind of a boring state a lot of times, but we're pretty good when it comes to a lot of laws. Remember, we're the first state to have legalized drug use. Granted, we just reverted that law, so, it's not really legal anymore, but we tried it. We're progressive. We had ideas. Granted, it was only one small part of the state that had ideas, but it was the majority of people, so it counts. Home of Bigfoot is a big deal. You know it. One of these days, some company needs to do a Project Sasquatch just so we can make fun of that. And I'm sure some company has, but whatever. The beauty of this law is now, let's be honest, if Apple wants to sell in Oregon, they're going to have to throw out their restrictions. Now, strictly speaking, Apple could try to do a hyper-local version of an iPhone that basically, kind of the same thing that they're going to do with the App Store in the EU, where if you are in the EU, you can install other app stores, but the moment you leave the EU with your phone, all of a sudden you lose that ability. They could try to do that with Oregon. I don't think they're going to. Especially because the truth of the matter is, Oregon's law is probably going to become a template for other states. So this is another one of those things where Apple could fight this. They really could. They could try for a while to fight this. But they're going to lose. Because chances are New York and California will very likely jump on this next. And once they're on board, it's over. This will just become a universal thing somewhere along the way. And that's assuming it doesn't just become a federal law. It very well could. So the good news is this is probably going to affect all iPhones in the US, and hopefully it will affect all iPhones in the world fairly soon. So yay, Oregon did something. For those that don't know, by the way, I live in Oregon. So I get to call out a win once in a while. There is one other detail about this law I want to point out. For as good as it seems, actually there are two details. One of them probably worth pointing out. One of the requirements in most of the right to repair laws is that parts have to be made available for some amount of time after the product comes out. Basically, if you need to repair something, the company needs to be able to make components, or the company needs to sell components through some means so people can actually replace and repair. Most states have implemented some sort of a minimum duration of time. Oregon did not. For whatever reason, Oregon was like, you know what? We're going to make that a rule. You have to do it. But if you do it for just a day, that's okay. So Oregon kind of bungled this detail. We'll see if that has any effect or not. I don't know. It may, or it could, but hopefully one of these days this will be amended to change the rules. The other thing I want to point out, and this one is maddening. So there are some exceptions. There are a few things that are exempt from this law, and some of them make sense. Some of them I'm totally okay with, because it is what it is. But some of them are not. So here are the exceptions. Those devices that are powered by combustion engines, so this includes basically tractors or anything made by John Deere, hint hint, which notably farming equipment is also mentioned in this list, so John Deere is kind of double protected. I'm assuming that's in case John Deere ever starts releasing electric powered farming equipment. Let's see, medical equipment. This one I kind of get because if you do not have stuff that is very carefully certified for medical equipment, it's usually not legal anyway. So a lot of medical equipment really, like, it would be a conflict if it was covered by this. That said, I really would like to have seen medical equipment covered, just in a narrower way. HVAC equipment is also on this list. That one strikes me as possibly legitimate. Possibly. I mean, I'm sure it's because those companies just lobbied like crazy to have an exclusion. But look, custom, like, replacement parts. If you get cheap replacement parts for HVAC equipment, you're basically begging for house fires. And that's a really good reason not to necessarily have this. So I kind of get that one. I'm going to skip the next one because I want to talk about that more. But then the final one on the list was energy storage systems. Again, I have a funny feeling that this one has a lot to do with... we don't want the opportunity for cheap replacement parts to lead to fires or other disasters. So, again, I kind of get this one. But then we have video game consoles. What the absolute crap? Are you kidding me? Why? Someone come up with an excuse for this. It is the dumbest thing. Absolutely idiotic. Maddeningly stupid. Why do video game consoles get an exception here? There is no good reason. None. Negative reason. Video game consoles, especially, I mean, let's look at the classics. The good old Red Ring of Death. Come on. That was a perfect example of a thing that could have been fixed if people could have bought a small replacement part, and that's it. Like, you could have fixed this easily. But nope. That one had to be made into a problem. And okay, that's going pretty far back in time. But almost every generation of almost every console has had a point of failure that was some bad design choice or somebody screwed up something simple. I mean, I literally right now, I have a PlayStation 4 that I had to, we'll say custom modify. I had to void warranty. Not that this thing was still under warranty. It didn't matter. But I had to take steps that voided warranty technically so that I could open it up and, I'm not kidding here, place a piece of tape over a single spot. I had to place a single piece of tape over the spot because they had a design flaw that causes that triggers the eject button on the disc to keep pressing itself even if no one's pressing it. Can we not just have replacement parts? Like, video game consoles are always plagued with problems. Let's just... This is something, if anything, like, this was the other big thing that needed fixing. Like, it was smartphones and video game consoles. Those were the two categories that everyone could agree on. We needed to solve this exact specific problem. And this was also sort of preemptively, let's be honest, it also kind of preemptively affects things like electric cars. But come on, Oregon. Who took the money from Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo? Who took the money? Show me. Who took the money? Because someone did. Y'all are jerks. Anyway, so yeah, that's where I'm going to stop my rant on this one. Overall, I commend this law for being put into place. I'm just angry that they decided to leave exceptions for video game companies, because that is idiotic. It is bordering on inappropriate. But anyway, I thought we were actually done with the Apple thing, but I just remembered there is one other topic. So we'll quickly sidestep into this. I don't actually have a lot to say on this, but Austin suggested this one, and I think this is interesting. So Apple has been working on, and there have been rumors of this for a while. Apple's working on a machine for updating your iPhone in the box before it's sold. This is one of those moments where it's actually hard not to credit how genuinely uniquely clever this kind of is. So, Palm actually owned a patent. Oh my god, really? I hope Apple gets sued for this then. They won't, but it would be so nice. But this idea is pretty clever. Also, I think there are other reasons behind this, but I'll tackle that in a second. So in the name, presumably, of giving customers a better out-of-box experience, basically Apple stores will have these machines, and I'm assuming it's just Apple stores. Maybe this will go to like Best Buys and other places too. That would make sense. You know what? I'm going to assume that's actually something that Best Buys will have too. Anyway, basically store employees will be given the instructions, hey, we'd really like it if you would take all of your time in like when you're not working, probably staying late, and just pick up all of the boxes, set them in this machine for a while, hit a button, and what it'll do is start feeding power to the phones wirelessly. It'll use NFC to tell the phones that they are in this machine, and then it will start uploading a firmware update to the devices, which they will then install. Once they're done, they will turn themselves back off and basically go back into a state so that they're ready to be set up. It's a pretty neat idea. It really is. I honestly, I like the idea of it. I do wonder if Samsung is ever going to get into this. Because it's the only other company that I think has the infrastructure and breadth of sales that are needed in order to pull off something to this scale. So we'll see on that. Now, obviously, this does lead to a better out-of-box experience. That's great for anybody that's buying an iPhone. Cheers. I can't help but think this feels like one of Apple's preemptive solutions for saying, you know what, we really we know enough. We know the day is coming. We're going to ship out a batch of iPhones, and somebody is going to figure out a way to jailbreak them, or they're going to figure out some sort of thing where you want to get an iPhone that doesn't have the latest patches installed. We don't want to allow that. So we want a way to do this without having to open the box. I guarantee right now, I am certain that somebody within Apple sees that as the reason for doing this. So, I mean, is that a big deal? Not really. It's not like that's a thing that should be protected. And I wouldn't say that in the interest of having access to some sort of security exploit that we shouldn't have better experiences at buying a product. It just feels very notable that that's likely a factor here. Also, as an unrelated point, I'm just waiting for the first time that we hear that somebody got their hands on one of these machines and used it to intentionally upload like pre-exploited firmware or some sort of hacked firmware right out of the gate. Will it happen? Yes. Someday someone will pull that off, and they will use it. They will use one of these machines to pull it off. I'm predicting it right now. Also, I'm kind of waiting for the day that somebody figures out a sneaky way to do this using stuff in the home. So, right now Apple's only got this in its own custom machines. Just wait. There will come a day that someone's like, oh, well, if we get this particular wireless charger and we put in an NFC chip that does this thing and we cobble together all these parts, yeah, we can do this in our own homes. Why someone would do that, I don't know. I'm just predicting it'll happen. Austin saying, yep, this was supposed to be a feature of the pre-3. Wow. And Austin, yes, I was going to bring that up too. It'll be hilarious the first time that Apple rolls out a update that ends up bricking a bunch of phones. Because it'll happen. Like, someday this will turn into a thing where they accidentally roll out an update to stores, and it ends up being a update that bricks all the phones that it touches. Someday that will happen. It'll be hilarious when it does. I don't know what else to say about it, but it will be funny. Anyway, so let's finally leave the realm of Apple and talk about Google. And this is something that gets me. I like this news. So reportedly, the Pixel 9 will be going to 3 sizes this year. Or, well, rather, we've been on 2 sizes, the regular and the Pro. Apparently, we're now set to get a 3rd size. This time, at least if the reporting is accurate enough, and let's assume it's probably not too far off, it's really going to be 2 models of Pro and then the regular. So single model of the regular to 2 sizes of the Pro. And I'm kind of into it. I like this idea. So in theory, the Pro XL, the new size, is actually going to be slightly smaller than the current Pro, the Pixel 8 Pro, by just a little bit. I guess the current Pixel 8 Pro is a 6.7 inch display, and the Pixel 9 Pro XL is only supposed to be 6.5. So shaving a little bit off, is it going to matter? Probably not a huge amount, but a little bit. And they're going to pump out a regular Pro, which is going to be a relatively tiny 6.1 inch. That is really, really, like, I mean, we're not into small phone territory. This isn't the size that people are going to go, oh my god, I finally get the small phone I've always wanted. No, it's, it's still a fairly sizable phone, but that's much more moderate sized. In my opinion, what we're actually getting is the new smaller Pro, to me, is the new size, whereas the XL is basically maintaining the old one. Anyway, so presumably there will be 3 cameras on both of the Pros, probably still 2 cameras on the regular. I'm okay with that. I think that's just fine. And hopefully the Pro pricing does not end up being ridiculous. I have a feeling it still will be, but it is what it is. But yeah, this seems to solve one of the bigger complaints about the Pixel lineup. That basically you had to either, if you wanted the smaller phone, you had to get one with only 2 cameras. You couldn't get the third, usually interesting camera. And if you wanted to get that third camera, or if you wanted to go to if you wanted to get that third camera, you had to go up to the larger phone, and not everybody liked that. Let's see. Sorry, just reading Austin's comment. Pro will be the same screen size. It's just not counting the screen edges being rounded. Oh, yeah, okay. I guess that makes some sense. Um, though this is saying it's the display that's shrinking. So maybe the phone dimensions are not. Anyway, whatever. I'm not too worried about it. It's as long as it's maintaining roughly, I don't care that they're not identical. I just think you definitely want them to be somewhere in the same neighborhood. Let's see, what was I saying? Anyway, so this does seem to sort of solve that dichotomy of you either have to go with the lower tier device to get a smaller screen and reasonable pricing, or you had to go to the much larger device in order to get the extra camera. Yay! So this kind of solves this. Sort of. Not entirely, but close enough. We'll see if it actually does. I think that's honestly the much bigger question. Unless the CAD drawing is off, it should be approximately 6.68 inches. Okay. Hey, if they keep the same screen size, that's good to me. I think it's great the way it is. The one thing that worries me about this, and I think that this is a pretty reasonable concern, what happens if the regular Pixel, let's say it stays the same price from the Pixel 8. What if the Pixel 9 Pro stays the same price? And I'm talking about the 6.1 inch version here. What if that stays the same price as the Pixel 8 Pro? And then they decide, you know what? This is the one we're going to make more expensive. So the Pro XL, which is the same size and basically same everything to the Pixel 8 Pro, what if that one is the one that they decide, yeah, let's make this more expensive because it now has XL in the name? I can see Google doing this. I don't want to see Google doing this, but I can see it. So, ideally, that the solution that should happen is the Pixel 9 Pro should actually come in cheaper than the Pixel 8 Pro, because it is a smaller device. So that would be the right solution, but I'm not super convinced that's what's going to happen. And even if it does come in cheaper, I'm curious what that difference is going to be. I could see it being $80 difference. I think that would probably be the appropriate answer. I'm fully expecting it to be $100, maybe even $200 difference, just for a relatively, just for a bit bigger battery and a larger screen. So we'll see. Austin, this should also kill the A series. I sure hope not. I mean, I could see that happening, but it really just shouldn't. The A series has a purpose, including, plastic materials, which some people actually prefer. The A series also obviously a price factor. You're saying next year we're supposed to have a regular XL2, basically back to the Pixel 3 and 3A, but with synced release. Yeah, I could see that. But at this stage, I do kind of want to see what the strategy ends up being. I'm a little skeptical on a few details here. Also, we're starting to edge into that position where the Fold is going to have to go through some strategic changes. Have I seen the 8A price rumors? No, actually I haven't. For the most part, rumors have been not super interesting to me lately. At least the typical ones. Why is the 8A going to be like astronomically expensive? Also, man, I wish I could get I wish I could get uh 560-ish. Yeesh. That's way too much. Get back that like 499 needs to be the top end of any A. Like that's it. Like anything in the A series should cap at 499. I mean, I get why they might not do that, but it's the right answer. Notably, by the way, I say that, but obviously, like upgrading storage, fine. You can go above 499, but the base price needs to be 499 or below. 399 was really the right thing to do. Um. Anyway, so yeah, I am curious what this year holds because it feels like Google is probably approaching a point where they have to start making some strategic changes with the Pixel line. They managed to bring attention to it. They actually carved out a real legitimate like piece of the pie in the phone market. Is it huge? No. Does anybody think the Pixel segment is profitable in a like meaningful way? Highly doubt it. The thing is, Google has established enough share in the market that it is very reasonable that they could turn it profitable and they could turn it into a meaningful part of the business. But they're going to have to expand. They're going to have to start pushing an extra couple of models, which the more models you push, the more they cannibalize each other. The thing is, you also have to start eating away at some of Apple's market share, some of Samsung's market share, and the only way that's going to happen is with competitive products at different price and size positioning. And right now, right now they need the only way they're going to accomplish that is by launching new models and shifting their product lines. And yeah, doesn't seem like they're necessarily making the best choices in that. And you think they're still losing insane amounts of money on tensor chips? Yeah, I don't doubt it. The thing is, though, and I've said this many times, I think that is an investment, and if they're smart about it, oh boy, is this ever a this could turn into its own show of discussions. If they're smart about it, then what they're going to need to do, they're going to need a few things. For one, I think they need to start licensing out some of the tensor technology. This is something I've been predicting since they announced it. Obviously, like I spent multiple shows talking pretty extensively about this. I think one of the smartest things that Google can do is start licensing out tensor stuff to other companies to include in their phones. And that like it's shouldn't just be for Google's own phones. It needs to be a feature that other phone manufacturers can implement, either by buying processors, or if they're making processors, it needs to be something that can be included. And I think that research will eventually pay off in that form. The other, let's see, you think they should wait to drop ARM, move to RISC-V, and then license because it would dramatically reduce the cost. Are you talking about moving? Okay, so am I wrong in this? Because I have heard multiple times that most of the tensor stuff itself is already using RISC-V. It's just RISC-V inside of a chip that otherwise is ARM components. I don't know that that's true, but I've heard it a few times. If that is not true, I'm still not sure that it necessarily even matters, because I mean, we're talking about basically coprocessors that are just built into the same die. Generally speaking, though, I'd agree, move to RISC-V as much as you can, because the licensing cost is obviously way lower, like comically lower. But yeah. The other notable thing, and this is what I was about to allude to a moment ago, there are obviously a lot of discussions about performance. Look, Tensor is one of those chips. Google has pretty much targeted every time. As I accidentally wake up the stop. Come on. Just muting the mic. Google has kind of targeted a power threshold. And I don't mean energy usage. I mean like performance power. They've been targeting a threshold with Tensor that it's high enough to, in many ways, rival a flagship phone's chip. But it's not actually, like in performance for specific functions, it's high enough that it can rival a like top-end processor. But in many other ways, it does not. An example of this that I happen to be paying close enough attention to, I've discussed the Motion Cam app multiple times. And I wouldn't call it a joke, but it's just sort of an acknowledgement within that particular community that, hey, Tensor chips are good. You can, they're not underpowered, but they are nowhere near the power of insert a handful of other chips. And it is a reality. You don't have the same amount of bandwidth inside the chip. You don't have the same processing power. It's a good chip, but it is not the same as just pulling out the raw power that you get from the high-end chips that Qualcomm is putting out, that you typically find in like Samsung's very top of the line phones. It doesn't rival what's in let's see, trying to think of some of the others, and I'm totally blanking on them, but point being, there are phones carrying much more powerful raw power chips. And as much as those have their own drawbacks, it does come with some, there are some advantages to just having that much raw power. Okay, awesome. Regarding the Tensor stuff moving to RISC-V, RISC-V, you said it's not entirely the M security chip is RISC-V, and the Tensor chip runs on a hybrid architecture. ARM charges OEMs now, not chip makers. Yeah, that's true. Well, I thought they'd still charge chip makers for the license, though. Like, license to manufacture. ARM is in a slump in general, and you don't see Google doing custom ARM architecture. No. Google is not going to be doing custom ARM architecture. That it doesn't make sense at this stage. It definitely makes sense to move to RISC-V. They charge both. Yeah, that's the thing. ARM is always going to charge everyone they can. They want to. And as long as people will pay it, then ARM gets to keep doing it. um, which is kind of a shame, as it were. Anyway, so what was I gonna say? I don't remember now. Anyway, yeah, Google. It would be nice if Google had more raw power in the chips. One thing that does leave me kind of wondering is, can Google ramp up a processor on RISC-V capable of competing with even the current Exynos architecture that they've been using for the tensor chips? Because that's a big ask, honestly. Like, that's a really big ask. I don't know that they can do that. As far as I'm hearing, RISC-V, it's good, but it's not matured enough yet that anyone is able to hit that sort of threshold. Yeah, no way, not in the next 3 years. Exactly. Now, that said, I mean, I linked to it a few weeks ago in general. There are companies out there that are rolling out RISC-V servers. Like they're rolling out actual servers running RISC-V chips, and apparently they're getting pretty good performance ratios. So it's not like we aren't on a course to see this happen, but it's still a while. So I just don't think that we're going to see RISC-V as the mainstay. Not immediately. And regarding tensor technology, what I was saying earlier, that Google can start making back a lot of this money by licensing out tensor technology. I think if they're smart, they do that before we see a full transition out of RISC-V. So I think that this is just the reality of it. This is going to have to be a sort of build the plane while it's in flight situation. Really quick, I did also want to go back and touch on one very minor detail, but I think it's worth noting. The Pixel 9 Pro XL versus the Pixel 9 Pro. I'm assuming, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I'm assuming they will have exactly the same cameras. I'm assuming they will have the exact same chips, same RAM, same everything across the board, just different on screen size and battery. I can't wait to see what the battery life differences are between these two. I think that is going to be a lot more revealing than people give it credit for. Because, look, the Pixel 9, there have been spec differences. The Pixel 9 had lower RAM, Pixel 8 had lower RAM than the Pixel 8 Pro. There's, it seems like there were other binned parts. Obviously, there was one fewer camera. These things may not have massive impact on your battery performance, but they do have an impact. And I kind of have a feeling we're going to see some revealing numbers that people will be making a lot of. People will consider it pretty newsworthy when a Pixel 9 hits. Austin. Until the US bans RISC-V because of China. God, I hate this country. Sometimes. Yeah. No, it is hilarious to me because RISC-V originated in the US. It is a technology that by any reasonable definition, it is us. It was developed by people who were closely tied to Stanford. They, I believe, developed RISC-V at Stanford. Yes, there is a lot of development centering on RISC-V in China. I know that. But there's also a lot of development happening here on home soil. If there is ever talk of a ban on Risk 5 that goes anywhere beyond just a few morons kind of batting it around, it's going to be so disappointing. That's going to be the perfect ultimate example of the just pure WTFery that we have in the US if a ban somehow ever even makes it to a floor vote. Like, even if it fails, that is the true pinnacle of xenophobia if it reaches that stage. But coincidentally, and I swear, I don't know if you're doing this on purpose, but it's like you're setting up these transitions for me. I wasn't going to do it in this order, but it just happens to work out. Let's talk about China banning Intel and AMD chips, because that is a genius idea that it cannot possibly backfire. But by all accounts, or by imagery, this certainly looks like it's probably in retaliation to the U.S. banning Huawei, at least in infrastructure. The U.S. banning or at least heavily limiting DJI drones. And the list goes on. It's not like these are the only things, but the U.S. has been really kind of putting the pressure on Chinese-made, like Chinese-originated technologies. And so, yeah, China is apparently retaliating by ordering that government computers should no longer use processors made by Intel and AMD. And I have a feeling that this is just a start. I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually move this to also include NVIDIA. We'll see on that. But it would be very telling if it also includes NVIDIA someday soon. And apparently they're also aiming to push Microsoft Windows out of the equation too. Which, okay, look, China wouldn't even be the first government to have tried to kick Windows out of the equation. And at this stage, like the last time China tried to do this, they infamously started their, I think it was called Red Linux. That was okay. Like, they tried it. They failed. Objectively, they did fail. But at that time, native Windows software was practically the only software that was really being made. These days, with web, who cares? Like, this is easy. They'll have no trouble getting rid of Microsoft Windows, at least for the most part. Things will be different though with Intel and AMD. Trying to shut those out of the equation is a pretty big ask. It's not that China doesn't have the capacity to do it. It's that the technology that they're reliant on is not caught up. So yeah, their alternatives to Intel and AMD are just not good. Though we'll see. You know, China has also famously been stealing technology for years. So they probably do have a number of years that they'll be able to keep, they'll be able to kind of feel like they're keeping up in their own smaller way. But at some stage, that ship will sail. Something just practically flew at my face. And I'd like to kill it. Anyway. So, yeah, it's another we'll see. But I think this is going to get interesting. And seeing as we're getting more and more into fights over what companies are allowed, what products are allowed, everything like that. Gotta be honest. I am very curious what's going to evolve in, because I pay close attention, or close-ish attention to it. I'm very curious what's going to happen in the drone industry. And now, if China is going to ban those companies, I'm really curious what's going to be happening with, one, their stock, and two, perhaps more importantly, are we going to see a Chinese competitor that that grows substantially as a result of this, who is then going to become the next interesting player on a global scale. Like, in order for China to do this, they're going to have to ramp up internally produced processors. Either that, or they're going to have to, I guess, rely on Qualcomm to produce ARM-based processors. That seems like maybe a poor choice. But whatever the case, in all likelihood, China's just going to start pushing really, really, really hard on their internal production. And if they're going to do that, it's probably going to catapult one of their own companies into the limelight. And at that stage, seriously, I could see them becoming global players. So who knows? This might actually have a competitive result for Intel and AMD. I consider that a good thing, even if it's kind of a bad thing too. We'll see. Austin, you say DJI is doomed? Nope. I don't think so. I think what we're gonna see is, in all likelihood, I think, well, DJI is already banned for, they're already banned from like high security or government use in any sort of secured location. And technically there's a ban, but it is not really enforced on use by government officials in more public settings. It's kind of one of those things where they were told not to get DJI, and then everyone kind of looked around and quietly said, yeah, thanks, and we will remember that. We'll definitely take that. We hear you, and we'll do exactly what you say. But in the meantime, somebody ordered from DJI, and whoops, we're just going to keep using that. So thanks. We'll not order again until next time when we need to. So yeah, right now I wouldn't say DJI is hurting too much from the loss of U.S. government people. Meanwhile, DJI just announced a new enterprise landing pad. This is designed for companies that do 3D mapping. And this landing pad automates the process of letting the drone land, charging it, keeping it ready, installing firmware updates. It does all these things remotely. And yeah, they're doing well enough with these types of products that they're pushing new versions of them. So I have a funny feeling DJI is not too worried about this. Is it possible that DJI drones will be banned on a larger scale? I actually think that's highly likely. I think for any infrastructure, any large building projects, I could see the U.S. government deciding, look, if we have the purview to demand it, and just notice green screen, or the lighting in this room got screwed up, so let's adjust. Looks like it fixes it. So I could certainly see there being a problem, but I think it would affect those types of larger projects. Wherever the government has purview to lean on those kinds of projects, I could see a ban in place. I'm not convinced yet that consumer level bans are coming. It's possible they are. You never know. But in the same breath as anyone talks about, anybody talks about banning DJI drones, it's hard not to talk about the fact that DJI is basically the only company working with the FAA to develop stricter guidelines on how drones should occupy airspace and how they should work with planes, how they should be better, better citizens of the air. Like, this is a thing they've been the best about. No one else is even coming close to DJI. So, it's kind of interesting to watch any argument related to these two. Is the ban bill still alive, or did Congress kill it? As far as I'm aware, there was a bill that I think died in committee originally. Well, okay, so there was a bill a while back that was basically it wasn't a bill. It was, I think the White House said no more DJI drones for government officials. Yeah, so I don't think it was Congress. I think it was the White House that gave that order. Man, the lighting changes in here are getting wild. I might have to cover that window. And then it progressed to, I believe there was a bill to ban DJI from all government use, no matter what. That, I believe, never made it to a vote, or it died in committee or something. Subsequently, there was the new bill that just happened somewhere recently. It's maybe it wasn't that recent, but it was not that far off, honestly. It was basically the TikTok bill, but it was more focused on just keeping government officials away from any company that's based in a country that we consider not necessarily a close ally. And that one I think ended up passing, but I'm not totally sure. But that again only affected government. To my knowledge, the talk about banning DJI at the commercial level for regular citizens, I think that's just something that's been rumored for ages, and there are people who keep talking about it, but all the people who keep talking about it keep getting stopped by the same issue that keeps coming up. There's not a company producing anything remotely competitive right now that is not also Chinese made. That last part does require throwing it in there. But the drone companies out there, it's DJI by a massive margin. DJI is so overwhelmingly the whole market practically. But underneath that, there is Autel. Here's the thing about Autel. Autel is great. Love Autel. Autel is a Chinese company too. Oh, jeez. Okay. Of course, it's freaking Stefanik. Can you name somebody who... I mean, the bill you linked. Can you name anybody who is more of a comedy act besides Green? I know, Green is worse. But... And Bobert. And Hawley. Josh Hawley, jeez. Seriously, why does this one group have such a monopoly on idiocy? But Stefanik needs to go. She is so awful. Anyway, but she is a sponsor of this bill for the Countering CCP Drones Act, which is pure xenophobia, I'm sure. It probably has absolutely nothing to do with anything, but whatever. Thanks for finding that, though. Let's see. So what was the status on this? Latest action ordered to be reported amended by the yays and nays. Okay, so... Alright, this is still in committee. Being that it's still in committee, that doesn't mean much. Let's see, I may as well move this over so this is visible. but yeah, so here's the bill. Of course, Representative Stefanik, Elise M. It is in the House Energy and Commerce Committee, and latest action, they're basically just calling for votes. So, yeah, according to this, it's just been introduced. That's it. It has passed nowhere. Let's see. And it was introduced in the House almost a year ago. Yeah. April 25th, 2023. And it still has not left committee. Yeah, this is never passing. So yeah. It's cute that they've got it there, and they'll show that off anytime they need to say that they're doing something against China, but yeah. That'll never make it to the House floor. Or at least it'll never make it to the president's desk. Okay, so anyway. What was I gonna say? I don't remember. Anyway, I think we're a long way from seeing any sort of actual domestic ban on DJI. Very notably too, or at least I think this is worth mentioning. At this stage, DJI, yes, their drones are predominantly like their biggest business. If they lose the US, they can still sell drones around most of the world. They'll be doing okay. Like, yes, the US really loves its drones. And yes, I'm sure the US is one of the biggest buyers. But the worst case scenario is they lose that portion of their business. DJI is also involved in making action cameras. Are they as big as GoPro? Nope, not even close. But they still make a really good action camera. They also make cinema cameras. Yes, for real. Are they big cinema cameras like Ari? No. They do not compete with Ari or Red, but they are what I would say is the next level down. They make some really compelling cinema cameras. They also make some really high-end gimbals. Technically, they do make a smartphone gimbal, and yeah, it makes pretty good money from what I've heard, but it's not the most important thing. But they make big rigs, like for actual holding heavier cameras. If anyone's curious, go check out the Ronin line. That's their big guys. And DJI is pretty much like not the leader, but very highly ranked among the. Maybe they are the leaders. I don't actually know. And I guess that depends on how big of a market you're talking about, because like they're not rivaling. I think Steadicam makes more, or maybe not. Well, that's not the right way to put it either. I don't know. It depends on how you're measuring. But yeah, point is DJI won't be gone. It just their drones would be if there were a ban. And I don't even think there will be a ban, but if there were, it would only take out the drones. It wouldn't take out any of the rest of DJI's other businesses. And again, they just continue selling around the world, which I'm sure would be generally seen as okay. Within the US, though, where do we turn? Because if you take out DJI's drone business, it's not like Autel is going to be allowed to sell to. I think Autel would then likely also get banned. To my knowledge, the next biggest name in drones is Skydio. And Skydio, I sat in on their last announcement. It's plainly obvious. Skydio has just, they looked at the consumer market, they tried it, they failed. DJI basically stomped them into the ground, and Skydio was like, yo, we get it. We're going to make stuff for US contractors. Like, we're going to make stuff for the military, for government services, things like that. So Skydio has just completely turned their back on the consumer market. And I don't blame them. Because really, they were losing that fight. So, but, that covers the government side of this. Will Skydio then turn around and start working with consumers? That'd be nice. They honestly do make a pretty good drone. But are they gonna? I don't know. Awesome. DJI is also almost certainly making military grade equipment for China, but it hasn't been proven. I mean, it depends on how you define military grade, but no, it's known. there's no mystery there. It's known that they were making drones that were being used for city surveillance. Because one of the models that they had was specifically designed to look for people who could be suspected of having COVID. It had a heat sensitive camera placed on it, and their drones were actually programmed to roam around cities looking for people who had higher body temperature. So, I mean, is that military? Again, depends on your definition. But they absolutely did have these. Now, if you're talking about weapons grade military, I don't know. You're right. I don't think that's been proven, or rather, it's not publicly known. But I'd be shocked if they weren't, because, look, it's sort of like Google. People love to say that Google, or people point to the various stories of like Google employees throwing fits when they find out that Google's working for the military, and so they stage walkouts and stuff like that, and then Google says, oh, you know what, you're right, we're sorry, we're gonna stop that, and then they just keep doing it. Like, nothing's changing. Google works with the US military, of course they do. They also work with our intelligence agencies, doing more than just responding to subpoenas. Come on. We know all the major companies work in, at least in small ways, with the military. It's not a mystery. It's not an unknown. Apple does it too. This is something, if you hear enough about it, Apple made custom versions of iPads for the military. Like this, it's not a mystery. This is well-known stuff. Or at least well, maybe well-known is the wrong term for it, but it's something that is not a well-kept secret. The CCP office in DJI is massive. Usually it's just a small group of CCP employees in Chinese companies, but their office is insane. Same with their sister company, Bamboo. Yeah. I mean, look, I think we all know DJI works with the CCP. Of course they do. Project Veritas doing the hard work. You. Actually, that Project Veritas is basically dead. Not sure you've heard about that, but last I heard, I think they filed for bankruptcy or something. And part of it because, like, I think there was some situation where somebody was embezzling the money that they were bringing in, and another person was they were up on charges of some sort of like tax evasion or something, plus obviously charges for various lies and slander and things like that. Like, Project Veritas won't exist fairly soon. But yeah, anyway, I don't know. I'm just not sure where any of these things go once or if DJI gets banned. Well, DJI drones. But yeah, anyway. Let's see. Well, let's we'll just keep going on the thread of spying. We're going to change topics, but change to the topic of Facebook spying, and unsurprisingly on people in the US and actually around the rest of the world. Seeing as Austin, you're the one who suggested this article, I'm going to assume you already know the details. For anyone that doesn't, the extremely abbreviated version, and by the way, I'm going to go to pretty much abbreviated versions on all of this stuff now because I've been talking for a while, almost 2 hours, and my voice is hitting its limits. Yeah, so Facebook, as it turns out, has been actively spying and reading on all of people's Snapchat conversations, not to mention eventually moving on to trying to spy on people's use of Amazon and YouTube and possibly others. So there's more to this story, and I'm just going to paste the link into chat so that this anyone who wants to read up on the details can get them. But basically, Facebook actually used a man-in-the-middle attack, basically putting malware onto phones so that they could spy on people's use of Snapchat in order to learn more about how people were using the app and its servers. Now, see, if they had done this with like WhatsApp or something like that, it would be one thing. Technically, they at least own that, own the service, even though there is the promise that it's not supposed to work that way. But they've basically been rolling out man-in-the-middle attacks for a while so that they could spy on anything and everything that people are doing inside of a competitor's app. Look, I'm just going to say this very simply. This is corporate espionage. This is illegal. This is already highly illegal. This is something that Facebook should be facing criminal penalties for. They are not. And there's a comment down below. It's, I think, the most uprated comment that really just hammers this point. I guess I'll just go to that. But this person going by the name CL, I quote, "I think the message here is that there's a huge asymmetry in the legal system on how to approach felonies done by individuals and those from companies. For example, if I had sued a single individual for doing a man-in-the-middle attack with an impact of just a few users impacted, that would probably lead him to jail, at least for some months. If the impact of the hypothetical attack is on the amount of hundreds of millions of users, it sounds like there would be bigger consequences, probably several years in prison. But now we see huge organizations like Meta commit massive cybersecurity crimes just in the wild and targeting billions of users, and they just get a public scorn on a publicly streamed court audience and some fines that, when extrapolated to an individual, would be something in the amount of hundreds of dollars. Is this, and actually I disagree, it's not even hundreds of dollars to the individual. This is approaching a few dollars per person affected at the most. I'm sorry, but no, what they're doing is so comically illegal. So, again, if you read into the details, the basics here are, Snapchat used end-to-end encryption so that they could, so that users sending any data from their phone to Snapchat servers, and of course to other people, would basically be encrypted. Other competitors obviously should not be able to see this. No one is supposed to be able to see this except for the intended recipients. Facebook basically developed what was I mean, it was a man in the middle attack, but it was basically using a VPN like service in order to intercept this data before it was actually being encrypted, which I'm a little unclear exactly how they were doing that part, because in theory the app itself should have been doing the encryption. I'm not sure why it would have been going through, or why it wouldn't be encrypted passing through here, but regardless. Which, by the way, as a side note, Snapchat, not exactly known for security. There's actually been a lot of Snapchat security vulnerabilities discovered over the years, so this isn't exactly, not exactly the highest standards here, but regardless, they've been doing this spying for years, and all according to them, so that they can just study the analytics and assess how to improve their platform for users. The reality is they're straight up spying. This is the sort of thing where the government should basically come down like a hammer on Facebook. We're talking to the level of possibly pulling business license, because this is criminal activity that is happening at the highest levels. Frankly, there should one thing that really shocks me. Let's see. Where was the quote? Yeah. Quoting this article, inside Facebook, there wasn't a consensus on whether Project Ghostbusters, which was the name of this project for competing against Snapchat, which famously had a ghost as its icon. But there wasn't consensus on whether Project Ghostbusters was a good idea. Some employees, including Jay Parikh, Facebook's then head of infrastructure engineering, and Pedro Kanawati? I don't know. The then head of security engineering, had expressed concern. Quoting them, or quoting Kanawati, he said, "I can't think of a good argument for why this is okay. No security person is ever comfortable with this. No matter what consent we get from the general public just doesn't know how this stuff works." Look, this is the head of infrastructure engineering and the head of security engineering. These are two top level people. These are about as high as it gets. That there are also other engineers working on this. Why the hell was there not a whistleblower? There should have been a whistleblower somewhere that looked at this and said, yeah, this is high crimes. The activity they were taking is actually to the status of high crimes. This is spying on a profound level. This is the sort of thing people should be going to prison for. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. That said, just going to say this as a side note. Now that I've seen this article, I am flatly uninstalling anything Facebook related from my phones. Just putting that out there. That's going to include Instagram, Threads, Facebook Messenger. Yeah, all of it. Facebook, good job. You managed to get someone who already wasn't using your services to now actively remove your software from everywhere. You're terrible. Go F yourself. But yeah, I almost don't even have much more to say on this, except, look, we're about to punish Apple for just being anti-competitive. Let's punish Meta, full stop, for this stuff, because this is illegal. Let's see. Kind of curious if, yeah, Actually, maybe that is the explanation. Snapchat may have just pinned the certificate and they were using a hostname trick. But how they were getting around it with the VPN, because I'm sure most people weren't actively enabling the VPN. That makes me wonder. Okay, anyway. Normally a man-in-the-middle attack would require something like that. There's a reason Meta doesn't face consequences. I'm sure you're going to say something else, but I'm going to throw in an answer right now. The reason they don't face consequences is because they're spying on people to get blackmail. And that sounds like I'm saying something conspiratorially or joking. No, I'm dead serious. At this stage, they're specifically spying on the communications of their users. You can't tell me that the majority of their users, or somewhere in that huge number of users, they don't have every member of Congress. They don't have various members of the Justice Department. That they don't have whoever they need. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the exact person who's in charge of any of these things. It could be family members. It could be things that their friends have said about them that revealed something. I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say they are actively blackmailing somebody. There's a reason. The secondary reason is, of course, money. Because after all, let's be honest. I think we all know Nancy Pelosi owns stock in Meta. I think we can point to plenty of people in U.S. government that own stock in Meta. And likewise, I'm sure they've all received lobbying or money through the lobbies to get whatever. So yeah, when money is involved, it's hard to say no. So, yeah. I'm just saying. This is the sort of thing. It needs to be stopped. One way or another. And I'd like to point out, and I know that this has been said a million times, but let's not forget they've also done with VR all kinds of shady stuff. So, I wouldn't trust that either. But yeah, I'm honestly like, if they're not going to be punished by the US government, there's another way to punish them. Shut down all their services. And I mean at the user level. Every user, just stop using their crap. Stop it. Stop using WhatsApp. Stop using Facebook Messenger. Don't let your parents go to Facebook. Don't go on Instagram and post anything. Or if you're going to do any of this stuff, do it through a web browser. Preferably in incognito mode with all the highest restrictions you can possibly turn on. But yeah, turn off their junk. Don't give them money. Don't let them have any of this. Because that's the solution here. Honestly, we can't make a company this size die overnight. But if we stop giving them money, they'll die soon enough. Anyway, let's see. Shifting topics yet again. And with a rant that's going to honestly be very similar in tone, but also discussing other terrible companies, the cable TV industry. So this isn't exactly brand new news. This has been kind of in the works for a little while, but the FCC has officially banned. Actually, I guess this happened last week. Wait, didn't I talk about this last week? I think for just a few minutes. But, I think Corbin might have brought this up last week. Anyway, the cable company has banned, brain fart. The FCC has banned a cable TV staple of advertising, which is basically hidden fees. You advertise a price of like, oh, you can have cable for $39.99 a month. And then when you get your bill, it ends up being like 55, 60, 70 bucks. And the cable companies basically say, oh, well, yeah, that's because we also have to charge this fee and that fee, and there's taxes, and oh, there's also this other fee. And yeah, so by the time you get to the end of it, they've charged you a ton of fees, many of which are either duplicate or unexpected, unreasonable. They're sometimes dubious in various ways. Make what you will of it. They suck. That said, anyway, that said, what gets me about this is it was already illegal. Okay, so the FCC basically mandated a few things. One, you have to show the final price as part of your advertising. So basically anything that is a predictable part of the price that they should just, it should just be there. You should know about this stuff before you sign up for it. All of that stuff has to be part of the advertising. In other words, the FCC is saying you can't do false advertising. Fun fact, there's already laws against false advertising. They've existed for years. No one would enforce them against the cable companies. That was the problem. They weren't enforced. It's not that the laws didn't exist. They weren't enforced. Let's see. Another part of this was, I don't know where it was in here, but, it was part of the micromanagement part. Another part of this said that, where is it? Okay. Oh yeah. This paragraph, I skipped right over it. Another part of this says that if the advertised price is a promotional rate, then it has to be marked as a promotional rate, and it also has to say what the full price will be after the promotion expires. While not exactly like this, fun fact, already a law. This is already a law. We already have this law in the books. It exists. It's been there for years. For actually a few decades, if I recall. So yeah, again, was not enforced with cable companies. Now, strictly speaking, you were allowed to put all that into the fine print, according to the law. And I'm pretty sure the cable companies were already doing that anyway. But yeah, you do have to have the post promotion rate somewhere visible. Let's see. And they did try to lean on prices that are specific to various markets, which really just came down to, yeah, you need to actually say that your price is going to be different for regionals. That's about it, though. So I'm looking at this and I'm just thinking, the problem here was never that this stuff wasn't illegal. It was. The FCC just basically made a redundant ban against cable TV companies because they weren't suing the cable TV companies for already violating the law. This makes me mad because this is one of those perfect examples of, cool, you did a thing. How about you could have just punished them anyway? That was already possible. So yeah, how about we punish them for years and years of doing the thing that they already should have been punished for? I think that would have made a lot more sense. But anyway, one final topic. and then I'm going to give my voice a break. And this is a quick one. This is actually a really quick one. And I don't know how much anybody cares about this besides me, because I use the software, but I don't know that many other people do. Anyway, in the last few days, Canva, who was just recently, very recently, an acquisition target for Adobe, after that acquisition got stopped, Canva has now acquired Affinity. For those who don't know, Affinity is a company that, and actually, Affinity is not the name of the company. It's Serif. I think Serif Labs. Is that correct? I guess not. Or no, I'm pretty sure it is. But anyway, I guess I can easily enough check the App Store. Affinity Photo is, yeah, Serif Labs. I had that right. Okay, so for those that don't know, Serif Labs basically makes 3 products in the Affinity lineup. It is Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer, and I am trying to think what was the other one. Affinity Publisher. So Affinity Photo is basically a Photoshop competitor. Affinity Designer is basically an Adobe Illustrator competitor. And Affinity Publisher is sort of a I guess I would say an InDesign, Adobe InDesign competitor ish. I think it was InDesign. Am I thinking, maybe I'm thinking of the wrong product. Honestly, it's hard to remember what Adobe's, or what each of the specific products did. Nevertheless, basically they made products that were meant to compete pretty directly with Adobe. And some of them did pretty well. Honestly, like if you look at everything you can do with Affinity Photo, it's actually a pretty good product. It has some limits. It's definitely not, it's not great for people who are working on photography. It's really good for, what do I want to call it? It's definitely good for things like, what is the word? I've had the worst trouble with words today. I think I'm just running on too little sleep. But it's good for more the graphic art level of work. So, you know, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for people who have to edit a big batch of wedding photos. It's kind of terrible for that. But it's pretty good if what you want to do is take lots of graphic components and integrate them into a single image and do lots of, we'll say, more artistic work on the images. It's pretty great for that, almost to the level that I would say it's actually better than Photoshop, because it has some really smart tools. That said, that would all be true up until the Adobe started shoving AI into Photoshop, because frankly Adobe has done a spectacular job of shoving AI into Photoshop, because Photoshop's AI capabilities are bonkers. They are so good. And obviously Affinity does not have that same level of capability yet. Anyway, for those who do care about this, the great news is Affinity. Oh, one of the other things people liked about Affinity, certainly one of the things I found favorable, is they had perpetual licenses. So if you buy a copy of Affinity Photo 2, it's yours. You don't pay a subscription on it. You just have it. And the prices, while I wouldn't call them cheap, they were very, very accessible. Affinity Photo 2 was $40 by itself. In fact, all of the software packages were $40 by themselves, or you could get, and notably that is $40 per platform. So if you wanted to get it for Windows and then later get it for Mac, you'd have to spend $80. Not the greatest deal. Or you could get a universal license that applies to Windows and Mac, and it would give you all 3 apps. You could do that for, I think it was $100. I'm not sure. Maybe that was a launch price, but whatever the case, I know it goes on sale often, so you can still get it for $100. You just might have to wait, and that gives you all 3 apps across both platforms. Oh, plus I believe it gives you access to the iPad apps. So pretty good deal, like really, really good deal. Anyway, when Canva bought the Affinity package from Serif Labs, that immediately sparked a lot of concerns that Affinity was going to switch to a subscription model, which is how Canva works, and they have now confirmed not happening. Apparently, Affinity is going to stick with its current perpetual software licenses, which is great for those of us who do not want to spend monthly on anything. And it's going to basically keep the software accessible for the foreseeable future. What it appears they're going to be doing is just integrating Canva as a big, like, they're going to integrate Canva as a service within Affinity. So presumably it's going to be a case of if you want to access Canva's stuff, or you'd be able to use Affinity as a front end to using some of Canva's features, then presumably that's where this acquisition is headed. I kind of don't understand why this wasn't more of a partnership. I'm not sure that Canva's going to get their value out of Affinity at this stage, but we'll see. I just think a partnership would have made more sense. But who knows? Maybe they have other plans. There are also concerns, and I admit even I have some of these, that Affinity is going to lose its momentum, which, to be fair, had already really slowed down. The updates for Affinity Photo have definitely been coming fewer and fewer lately for quite a while, and the new features, for the most part, not particularly exciting or interesting. It's been a lot more bug fixes and much fewer features, but hey, I'm mostly okay with that. Regardless, yeah, I kind of have a nagging feeling that this is going to be okay for probably about a year, and then we're going to start seeing Canva saying, you know what, now's the time. We really would like to see return on investment. At which point, I'm not optimistic about Affinity's future. I'm hoping that by then, maybe there will be better options. Or maybe I'll just switch back to Photoshop. You never know. Or maybe Affinity will turn out to get better as a result of all of this. A million possibilities all exist. Anyway, so enough of that. Let's see. I have a mountain of review photos to take. Unfortunately, most of it is for stuff that hopefully the reviews will be published at the announcement of these things, so I'm not even going to promise to try to do photo edits with any of them. But I'll try to squeeze some photo edits in somewhere in the near future. I know, I always say it. We'll see if it ever happens. But in the meantime, stay tuned, because holy crap, do I have a lot of stuff to review. It is enough that I almost feel like I need to get someone to help me with doing some of these reviews. Not the writing part necessarily, but I swear I need someone to hold a camera for me half the time, or stuff like that. I'm also going to see if I can't get a couple of video reviews out somewhere around the same time as launch. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, I'm going to stop with that. Thanks everyone for coming by, hanging out, particularly Austin, who has been holding up all the heavy weight of not only the chat, but supplying many of the topics for today, which gave me plenty of rant potential. Let's see. Huge thanks to whoever comes by later and listens to my babbling. I will be back this weekend for some gaming. Fair odds that due to some scheduling factors, I'm probably going to start a little bit later, and if the weather is good. I haven't really decided yet, but due to like, there's a lot of complicated weather over the next couple of weeks, and I need to get outside and do stuff, and sometimes those are the best days for doing it. So hours may fluctuate a little bit, but yeah, I should be gaming this weekend one way or the other. But with that, thank you all for coming by, hanging out. And of course, sorry, I almost forgot. Huge thanks to those who support the channel: Austin, David, Carson, Diablo, and Curvy Mermaid. If anyone would like to support the channel, links down below to Cash App, Streamlabs, and Patreon. And with that, this time for real, I hope you all have an excellent rest of the week, and good night, everybody.